What is up? It is Thursday night, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, which means it is Star Wars Newsnet Live Hour. And today, or tonight, I should say, a bit of a somber tone around tonight's episode because we were remembering one of the greatest to ever do it in literally anything, because James Earl Jones is just an absolute titan, not only of the industry, but of a way to just exemplifies how to live a full rich life. So we're going to spend a lot of time remembering his legacy, not just in the world of Star Wars, but also just in all of the other things that he contributed to over 93 years. And the list is quite long, but I am sure we each have our favorite James Earl Jones memories, Darth Vader, memories in Star Wars, or just different moments from other movies, films, musicals. He's literally just absolutely larger than life. And I cannot wait to dive into it. I tweeted this before the show. I said that, you never hope when we do our shows, we have like 3 podcasts a week that we usually put out. You never hope to do one of these shows. Like when Carl Weathers died this year, that was absolutely tragic. But in terms of James Earl Jones, there is a little bit of beauty in the fact here that we're able to look back and spend that time to reflect on his legacy. And I think there is some beauty and some grace in that. And I think that also is part of the healing process for a lot of fans who probably felt like they lost someone that's been a part of their lives for as long as they can remember. So I would love for, once we get into that part of our show tonight, for this just to be just a fun, lighthearted time, being able to talk about our favorite memories of James Earl Jones and just reflect on that. And it's a really positive, way. I think that's what, the legacy of James Earl Jones would want, for us to do. But my name is Tyler. As always, I am here on Thursday night, joined by Luke and Jay. How are we doing, fellas? How are we doing this week?
Hello. Doing well. Tyler, how are you?
I'm doing quite great. I must admit, my girlfriend bought me Jamaican food tonight. So a little treat after I got doing grad school class, barbecue chicken, but the sauce is barbecue with
Yes.
hints of guava in there as well, with the fried plantains, rice and beans. And first of all, I devoured the entire thing. But it was quite delicious. And I must say that I was blown away by the dinner that I was provided. And so I'm doing great. We had testing today. We got through our last round of state testing for a little while. So where things are looking up, there's football on the horizon. I'm going to see my mother this weekend who's in town. There's a lot of positive vibes. The only bad side, Luke, I must say, is that I still have not finished Beware the Nameless because I'm a lazy SOB right now.
You better be careful. I'm going to catch you.
I know that's honestly going to be my inspiration to complete it. But we have new Star Wars out tomorrow. Jay, are we excited for new Star Wars tomorrow in Rebuild the Galaxy?
Oh, you know what? Yeah, I
Rebuilding
totally am
the Galaxy.
actually. Yeah. Rebuild the Galaxy. All four episodes of the series will be dropping tomorrow, so I'm really excited for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I cannot wait for Darth Jar Jar. So there's just a few things I want to talk about here, and then we're gonna get into James Earl Jones. But Darth Jar Jar, that's definitely something I'm really looking forward to. The Ewoks and all of that. And I must say also, we saw some other momentous things in terms of the content for Star Wars this week. Star Wars number 50 and the comics also came out this week. So we ended a massive run. Luke, I know you're making your way through those right now.
Yeah.
And I need to ask, how soon do you think you'll get through the entire 50 run here before you catch up? Because I know you're a little over halfway, I believe.
Yes, so I'm in the Dark Droids arc right now. I am at issue...
Well over halfway, okay.
The late 30s, so getting to issue 50 shouldn't be a problem. I should be catching up to that next week, by the end of next week.
Also, we need to celebrate Happy Ewan McGregor Day today because he got his star, Hollywood Walk of Fame. I don't know if you guys have watched Hayden's speech that he gave there, and oh, their relationship is just so wholesome. It's
So
so
good.
just seeing Hayden turn back and tell Ewan, like, I love you, brother. They engage in a hug. And, these are two individuals that I have never met in my entire life and most likely will never meet in my entire life. But like so many of the Star Wars people in our lives, they feel like, part of the, like, I don't want to say family, but they do feel like, pseudo like family members because of how important they are to the fandom, how integral those characters are in many of our lives. And to see two people so excited about like being able to celebrate one another, but also genuinely loving being a part of this fandom, and seeing Ewan's literally just continuing to be like Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2 or more Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, I love that. I don't necessarily think we need Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2, but I just love how much he loves just embodying Obi-Wan Kenobi. Jay, did you get a chance to watch any of the speech from Hayden yet, or any of the little ceremony?
I watched a bit of like the snippets that we posted on Twitter and X. But yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with you. It's just like there's a lot of. It's really cool to see like these actors just having and forming a relationship afterwards
Mhm.
and like still being friends.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, especially now we're 20 years removed from pretty much from all the sequels or from all the prequels. Sometimes it feels like it's been 20 years since the sequels came out, just due to the, I think, years I've lost on my life from some of the discourse from
All the
the
activity
sequels
for sure. Yeah.
trilogy, which I'm sure that's how people that were our age or older growing up with the prequels probably felt with some of the discourse around that. Luke, last thing here, will you be watching Rebuild the Galaxy? Will you be watching that like first thing tomorrow, like after you get off work? Like, is that like high on the priority list, watching it, or is it more of a you'll get to it when you get to it?
It's a little bit of I'll get to it when I get to it.
Mhm.
It does look
Okay.
exciting. And I'll try to. I don't think I have much going on this weekend, so I think I'll try to throw it on and watch. Jay, you
Mhm.
mentioned that it's 4 episodes. I don't think I even knew that.
Yeah.
I thought it was just like a straight like 45-minute special. So I didn't even know that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. So
I thought it
that's
was like their
cool.
usual, like, here's 35, 45 minutes.
Yeah, I've watched the first two. I don't think I watched Summer Vacation, but I watched the first two, the holiday special and then the Halloween special. So
Mm.
those were good, fun stories. I'm really looking forward to this one. This one looks insane, looks wild. That's what I'm here for. I'm here for the
Dark
crazy,
Nubs,
weird.
man. Dark Nubs.
Yeah, I'm here
We're
for the
recording
crazy,
this
weird
week's
Star
timeline
Wars.
show after this, so it'll be fun to talk about Darth like Nubs someday as well.
Yeah.
Jay, quick question. If
Hmm.
you could, there's all these little, we have Darth Jar Jar, there's Ewok bounty hunters, there's Admiral Akbar clones. If you had to like put in your own random like switch up in the galaxy that just works for you in a funny or even comically serious way, what would you do? Like, is there anything you would like change real quick?
Oh, like a what if
Yeah. Just like
situation.
some sort of like what if that you would put in something like
Oh,
rebuilding the galaxy. That's just like that's so stupid, but it's actually
yeah.
hilarious. Like when Admiral Akbar they took off all the clone helmets in the trailer, and they're all saying it's a trap, it's a trap, it's a
Yeah.
trap.
I've always wanted to see a Jawa wielding like a Jawa that wields a lightsaber. Like give
It
I want to
ignites,
see.
and it
Yeah,
says Houdini.
I want to see like a Jawa actually like being a Jedi or a Sith. I think that'd be really cool. I mean, we're really close in Star Wars Hunters, the free mobile game.
Mm.
There is a hero character called Utini, I believe, and it's like two Jawas standing on one, like on one another's shoulders, and like a big trench coat, and they like pull out like a bunch of like weapons from the trench coat. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty sick. I mean, we've had some really cool like Jawa characters. Like, I want to see like a Jawa like
Like
do
just a
lightsaber
Jawa
stuff.
Jedi, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, Luke.
Oh, if I had to do a little switcheroo for Rebuild the Galaxy, I would want a light side Maul. They go to Naboo, and they actually change his mind that he doesn't want to be a Sith anymore. He joins the Jedi Order. His lightsaber instantly turns blue.
I thought you were gonna say like Light Side Maul, like it's him taking Obi-Wan to Naboo, and Qui-Gon is the Sith Lord or something. But you're like saying they show up, the doors open, he takes off his hood, and Qui-Gon's like, "We'll take care of this." And Maul goes, "No, guys, like I'm actually here to like help. Like I'm here to help."
Well,
That's
when
what you're
Exactly.
saying?
I'm
When
defecting.
Luke-
Or, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan actually, like, instead of lightsaber dueling, it's a dueling of the minds, and they have like this debate and battle of like
oh,
your morality, and they win him over because they're like, listen, be a good person.
Just a battle of like philosophy.
Yes, absolutely.
If I was doing one, and this is classic me. So Luke will see this coming a mile away. It's the Emperor is arriving on Return of the Jedi for the first time. Like in the moment from Return of the Jedi, the Emperor is arriving. Darth Vader is preparing for that arrival. He is knelt. And then out, instead of the Imperial Guards, out comes D Squad coming down. And then the Emperor has like this big shadow, and it slowly shrinks to Meeber Gascon walking with a hood over himself. And it's Meeber that is now the Emperor of the galaxy.
I
And
will
he's
say
like,
D-Squad comes back in the comics.
yeah. This with the dark droids, like
That's what I'm
arc,
in right
like
now.
there's a
Yeah.
couple like D Squad. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Anything D Squad, I will get. Anything else Star Wars you guys feel like you want to hit before we talk about something rather sobering?
I think that's about all we had. I think we're ready to get into the main celebration of life.
So it is absolutely, made the airways by now. Everyone should know that, we lost Darth Vader. We lost James Earl Jones this week, 93 years. And we are talking about someone that is a fixture of film and cinema from, the 70s and 80s and 90s. And is there honestly like someone that can, and I was thinking about what to say, and I'm just mostly just winging it here, but I genuinely want to know, has there ever been someone that could command like an audience, both whether it was in the musical realm, film, with his voice from a place of being able to construct and instill utter fear and terror in you, while equally being able to have like the sense of joy and like geniality that exists as well? Because it was like you could watch him be Darth Vader, and there is nothing more sinister than hearing Darth Vader's voice. But then there's also these, movies he's in, like Field of Dreams, where baseball movie where he gives one of the most inspiring monologues in movie history, you could say. And there's just, I feel like no one else that is able to do that in such a commanding way as he was. And I'm curious, what your guys' thoughts on that, just like the duality of the power of that iconic baritone.
yeah. So I can go first. I did the report actually on Star Wars Newsnet, our website, and yeah, it was tough actually. Like you said earlier, we never want to do those kind of reports. I never want to do that. Like but I was there, and then we got that that notification on our phones, on our devices, and then we're like, all right, we got to cover this. And then so I was like, all right, I got to do this. But you're right, absolutely, Tyler. I mean, I didn't know this actually, but he was an EGOT winner. He got Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, Tony. He got the 4. And across all mediums, like this guy, Mr. James O. Jones, was such a commanding presence. And it wasn't just because of, like you said, like his voice and his performance, but he wasn't just a force of intimidation. He was a force of kindness, and of joy, and of enthusiasm. So that's always something that I'll remember James O. Jones for.
So my first memory of James Earl Jones is like not even like Star Wars. It's some of his other like projects, and I was surprised when I learned that he was
Yeah,
also like Darth Vader because I had seen
yeah,
him in some of these other things. Luke, what
Mufasa.
about you?
Um,
Mhm.
uh, yeah. Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, you guys have hit it well.
Oh,
Like,
Conan, yeah.
and Tyler, you even mentioned like his range of the characters he's played that have been sinister, evil, and wonderfully good. I think that just speaks to like the command that he respects, whether he is playing a bad or good role. Like, it's going to be very powerful. He was a very powerful actor, voice actor, just presence on screen, and that's because I think he was such a pure person, just genuinely in real life. He was so good. He was so beloved by any co-actors he had. Anyone who worked with him was just overjoyed to have him on their project.
Mhm.
And you don't see that anymore. I mean, that's he's so unparalleled in his who he is in his work,
Mhm.
his voice. So it's a major loss. But I mean, 93 years is it's a long life. Like, I'm glad he got so long to be with us.
Mhm.
So
We
yeah,
have a
we
couple
are.
like
Yeah,
comments here that are really cool. Like just like what our favorite stuff is. Like Sandlot, from Travis here talks about the Sandlot. That was actually my first, like, I think, memory of knowing who James Earl Jones was because of his role in that film. Like I had probably seen Star Wars and The Lion King as a really young kid before like I watched The Sandlot, but I'm not processing as a 3 year, like a 4 year old, like who is the person talking in that voice. Like that's just Mufasa. But then with The Sandlot, like I'm actually seeing him on screen and I can like put a face with, that voice as well. So like in Coming to America is hilarious, but not to like, obviously Conan the Barbarian, that's probably going to be, I would say probably one of the 3 or 4 like roles he's most like known for would be in that film as well. And then I don't know, have you guys seen this episode? I love The Big Bang
I
Theory.
yeah,
have.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Travis Marshall is saying here how like Travis, like if you haven't seen his episode, season 7 of The Big Bang Theory with Carrie Fisher, it's their first meeting in person. Please do so. That is freaking hilarious. He's like taking Sheldon to like Ding Dog Ditch Carrie Fisher's house in The Big Bang Theory, and he's like, "Oh, she's crazy," and the thing that was the first time that they met in person is, kind of remarkable as well. And even reflecting back on that episode, having lost Carrie as well, and, James Earl Jones, like that is like such a special moment in time now to have them like together in like this little sitcom that is beloved by a lot of people, but to know that these two people that are immeasurably like in the Star Wars, world forever, and their legacies are going to last well beyond, when they departed us. And they only met, years later. Like, this is what, like 30 something years later. That's insane to think about. But it is a great episode. Anyone should go watch. Have you guys seen that?
I've seen the clip. I haven't seen the full episode, but I've seen where they interact on screen together.
You've seen like that part though.
Yeah,
Like, okay.
I have seen that.
Jay,
I've
you
seen the
said you have.
episode.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. I was a big Bang Theory fan in my
Oh,
middle
okay.
school days for sure. I wanted to talk about that episode because it's funny, like in that show, they do run into famous celebrities all the time. You had Nathan Fillion on there.
Mhm.
You had Leonard Nimoy. He was also on The Big Bang Theory. And constantly, when they meet these celebrities, these guys are like, oh, it's another one of these, crazy nerds, that's really like bothering us and that only wants to talk about
Mhm.
sci-fi or whatever it is, or Star Trek, it's that sort of thing. But
Mhm.
then in that one episode of The Big Bang Theory, they did a switcheroo where it's like, oh no, like they meet, like Sheldon meets James O. Jones, and he's like, I love Star Wars too, and he's like really excited to talk about Star Wars with Sheldon. And what's funny is like, for me, I've always I know it's just like a role, and like that was part of the episode script. But part of me was always kind of like, part of me kind of wondered if maybe even James Earl Jones himself was, kind of like that actually, where
Mhm.
in real life when people did come up to him, he was absolutely excited to just talk about whatever, whether it
Mhm.
be Star Wars, whether it be Conan the Barbarian. Like again, it's fascinating because we as Star Wars fans, of course, we know James Earl Jones as
Right.
Darth Vader, but he did so much more.
Mhm.
And I'm sure, like you go to other podcasts, they'll talk about that stuff too. We here, of course, will focus on Star Wars, but like like Tyler said, I mean, Coming to America, Conan the Barbarian, Field of Dreams, Lion King. Um, but part of me, again, when I was watching that episode and when I went back to it, just
Mhm.
watching the clips just recently, part of me was like, I wonder if, like, part of me does believe that he was like that in person and
Mhm.
that he was absolutely happy to just talk about anything with
And
fans.
I have to put the quote that Travis dropped in the comments because that episode's burned in my brain. It's like Sheldon's like starstruck trying to meet James Earl Jones, and he goes, "So I guess you're here to talk about Star Wars." And Sheldon like is unable to do words. He just nods like
Yeah,
he's starstruck, and he's just like, and then bursts out in this like big smile. I love Star Wars too, and
yeah,
it's like, oh, like you could feel like the heavens like opening and the sun coming out, and then they go
yeah.
on this like they're literally like, just start like pulling pranks on people
Cleanse.
together.
Yeah,
It's just such a funny episode.
like
And
they go like to get ice cream, and then they go in like on a roller, like a Ferris wheel ride. Yeah, it's really funny.
in terms of Star Wars, it is incredible to think that they brought him in very quickly to win the like very soon before the film was going to be released to dub the lines for Vader. And like I was reading in one of those reference books, like they offered him, like $7,000 to do the lines, or like some sort of like really small like royalties like
Just like
thing
Alec
to go
Guinness.
along. Like, yeah, very small. And he's like, I'm taking the $7,000 because this isn't going anywhere. And then he gives like an interview where he's like, if I had only someone had told me to do the other thing, I would have been like a multimillionaire overnight. Like as soon as that movie, came out, like those first 2 weeks, just because of how much Star Wars blew up. And obviously, I'm sure he made a little bit more money as of Darth Vader later on, but just trying to think about what Darth Vader, and by all intents and purposes, is the most iconic movie villain of all time. Like in terms of, every single person that you talk to is going to know who Darth Vader is. And if you showed a picture of Darth Vader, they would know who that is. The look and everything from the look to, the everything, the bodily expressions, but it's the voice. Like if it is not that voice, I just cannot imagine Darth Vader being able to be like separated from that. Like I can imagine Han Solo being Alden Ehrenreich as well. Like I was able to make that distinction. But with like Vader is one of those things where there's a reason why Disney and Lucasfilm went really hard to try to get the okay to use AI to help generate, the voice for James Earl Jones for Vader in Kenobi, because you cannot have Darth Vader without that voice in a live action or a like a cinematic experience. We've seen some different things for like video games or in here and there, but you just can't have it. And I just cannot imagine. It's just crazy to imagine what the world would be like today if James Earl Jones had never been the one to voice Darth Vader. Like how much it is impossible to know how much of an impact that would have had on the franchise, like forever. Like would we be sitting here talking about Star Wars today if it weren't for just how iconic Lord Vader is when he walks in and he just starts talking immediately, like, you are part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor, like take her away. Just how intense that is. I want, like, what do you guys have to, like, what do you think about, like, do you think about those things as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was going through a few of the Star Wars games, like you mentioned, and they don't have James Earl Jones voice
Mhm.
acting the character, and it's kind of obvious, and you can tell, and it's kind of crazy. Like even today, after so many years, we have you see it on TikTok, you see it on YouTube videos of people impersonating great actors and great performances. You don't have a whole lot of great James Earl Jones Darth Vader impersonators. Crazy enough.
Right.
I mean, not to like, disrespect any of them who've come along, but it's like, wow, like you can tell when it's not James Earl Jones voice acting the character,
Mhm.
you know?
And it has to like take you out of it just a little bit. Like
Oh, for sure.
it
Yeah.
does. Luke.
I can actually go along in that same vein. I think I maybe mentioned in the past weeks I'm playing through Star Wars Squadrons, and there is a snippet where they have Vader speak something,
Oh, really?
and you can really tell that, like, the voice sounds menacing, sounds sinister, sounds evil, sounds like a Darth Vader esque. It's not Darth Vader. It's not
Mhm.
James Earl Jones, and I'm like, man, it's weird how easy it is to tell that, like, it's not him. Like
Mhm.
he's what makes the character work. Like David Prowse, you are also Darth Vader. Thank you for where your work, but the voice is just like half the character, if
Mhm.
not more. Like
It's more.
it
It has to be
yeah,
more. It's
yeah.
100% more. And I don't want to, and that's not discounting anything that like David Prowse brought to Darth Vader. It's not discounting anything that Hayden Christensen brought to Darth Vader in the Obi-Wan Kenobi like series when he's in the suit.
Yeah.
It just because, we're saying that James Earl Jones deserves like almost like most of the credit here. Like there's so many people behind the creation of the
There's no
look of
disrespect
Darth
to the
Vader.
others. Yeah.
But it's one of those like where you will never be able to you can recast a Luke Skywalker. Like you could do that at some point. Like you can do that. You can recast they recast Obi-Wan Kenobi for the prequels. You could do something like that for certain characters. You could never trot out someone else to record the voice for Darth Vader. And I think Jay said it so well. It's impossible to emulate that voice. It is so iconic. It is so rich. It just sends like reverbs throughout your whole body. Like I remember being like a child watching Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, and when I think James Earl Jones, like peak Darth Vader, is when Luke shows up in on Cloud City, and he says, "The Force is with you, young Skywalker, but you're not a Jedi yet." Like that is just I can hear it like in my mind. Like I don't have to go watch the movie. I don't have to look it up on my phone. But when I just think about that scene, like I hear that voice and it's chilling. And there's nothing else you could do with Darth Vader that could recreate that. And that's why they've made sure that they've tried to, make sure they can have those rights to do that, like they did for Kenobi. Because in Kenobi, it sounds really good. Like I think it's like Vader, he sounds really good because it's James Earl Jones like voice that they're pulling, these things from.
Yeah. And not to go on a tangent, but it is really important to get those rights because we're seeing Willis Tarkin and Peter Cushing have kind of a little battle there too. So I'm glad that things are going to be set up that maybe we could have a little bit more James Earl Jones even after posthumously. I would love
Mhm.
to maybe even have that.
Mhm. Like where would it's interesting to think like where would Star Wars be without like that voice? Because I feel like so much of Star Wars is made by Darth Vader. There's like a lot that goes into Star Wars, and Luke Skywalker, the Jedi, Yoda, like these are things that live on forever. But it is, I really do believe that Darth Vader has to be like up there as like what made Star Wars work so well, because from the moment he walks into the screen and you hear his voice, you are forever just locked in like any time. And I think it's the range that he had we talked about his range in terms of characters, but as Darth Vader, like the range he had as Darth Vader, because we see him so menacing throughout all of this, so evil, so sinister, but also an Empire. At the end, when he's talking to Luke, like you could hear it in his voice, like there is that part of him that wants him to change. And then in Return of the Jedi, like it's too late for me, son. Like you can, the way he's able to still command the room, but instead of commanding the room through like sheer force of will, it's like commanding the room in like such like a subtle way where you're just leaning into every single word that Darth Vader is like uttering. And no one can do that like James Earl Jones. No one could do that.
Yeah, I think if you were going to bring it up, I was going to try to. And it's the fact that I was watching just a bunch of Darth Vader clips in preparation for tonight because I knew what we were going to be talking about. So it's, you can absolutely tell that there's different things that he's conveying just with his voice in Darth Vader in the different movies. If you're watching, like the two lines that you've already said is when, you know, he's part of the Rebel Alliance and a traitor, take her away. And he's like, he's sassy almost. Like, I like thinking about, you know, Anakin in that suit being like still hot headed. And he kind of, before we know that there's this whole backstory to Anakin, he's conveying that there's this like kind of more sassy human in there. But then when you're seeing, like, no, I am your father. I'm not doing it any justice, but like, if you're going back and watching it, I think if you look for it and if you're trying to hear it, like the voice is a little bit softer and almost choked up because like Vader's having a hard time even with this subject. Like he wants him to join him. Like there's real range in Vader that if you pay attention to, it's absolutely there. It's not just him saying lines and they're just vocoding it and that's all there is. Like he was a great voice actor. That does come across in Vader. Listen for it. Like it's absolutely there.
Jay, do you have any just particular moments or lines in Star Wars as Darth Vader that stick out to you when you think of James Earl Jones from the Star Wars side of things? Like, is there anything that really like resonated with you? Like that's the Darth Vader line that, you know, I take with me.
Yeah, for me, it was practically like almost all his lines in Return of the Jedi. Because when you watch Return of the Jedi, I mean, that is the movie. Like so much of that movie is just centered on Darth Vader. And Darth Vader actually has the most screen time in that movie out of the original trilogy, actually. So that's the one where he's featured in the most. It's funny, like there's a I think Nerdwriter, the one YouTube essayist, he did a video talking about how many minutes of screen time Vader is on in terms of Star Wars. It's less than half an hour. It's less than half an hour of screen time in the original trilogy.
I was going to say, like in the whole original trilogy, I think it's like 30 minutes or
yeah,
less.
It's actually less than that. But in Return of the Jedi, I mean, Darth Vader goes to like literally practically like that's the most drastic turning point in his character arc, right? But like my favorite moments are like at the start, you know, when he comes in on the shuttle and right away you may dispense of the pleasantries, you know, and this is the guy who's going to command the room. This is the guy who you're going to like kneel before and you're going to say, we shall double our efforts. You know, even though, you know, like you're going to get killed doing so. And then at the very end, you know, his final few lines are, Luke, you know, take off this mask. I want to see you with my own eyes. And then there's a real difference there, you know, and I think that, you know, we talked about this earlier, but the range and just like how you convey that with your voice is insane. And again, it's the fact that like he knew like the James Earl Jones, Mr. Jones was such a great performer that he knew how to convey all of that and to convey the change in character, all just in his voice, and it's astounding.
Everything that you just said is just so spot on. And Return of the Jedi, like I base Star Wars, like my Star Wars movies are straight on like feels. Like what feels do I want? Because the thing I love about Star Wars in general is that it can make you like I can watch a Star Wars movie like, you know, A New Hope or The Force Awakens, and like I can feel so hyped from like that movie. Like for me, like honestly, like Last Jedi does that for me as well. And oddly enough, Phantom Menace does that for me, even though it's like really kind of dark because Qui-Gon dies and it's like this gloom and like this onlook of like darkness. But Return of the Jedi, I think gives like such a raw, like just visceral, piercing level of emotion attached to it, just because of the like redeeming factor of Vader. And like a lot of that is like conveyed through Luke's, love for his father and belief that anyone could, never be truly gone. But like I would say that the real like part of that this hits is how you see it through Vader's, side as well. And that's all through James Earl Jones' voice. And I just love the part where he is literally just sitting there like, I see you've constructed your lightsaber. And him and Luke have this exchange before they meet the Emperor. And that just line always stuck was like, it's too late for me, son. Like he's completely given up. He's lost hope, but he wishes for a different outcome. And you just feel so frustrated in that moment as a fan. Like you just want like, no, like you could like, come on, like come back. And James Earl Jones knows how to convey all of that. And every bit of that exchange between him and Luke in the throne room of the Death Star is absolutely fantastic. From Vader goading him to like they're having genuine conversation as they're fighting. Like every little part of that is just so good. And Return of the Jedi, I think, gives you that level of like emotion, like just the happy, sad tears throughout that I don't think any other Star Wars movie like gives that to you. And I think Luke, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's like a large part of why it's your favorite Star Wars movie, is it not?
Absolutely. Weird enough, I was just talking to my fiance about like my top 10 favorite movies. We were just talking, and like the first movie I
we
listed.
love any M shout out on the podcast that you can give us. Of course.
And the first movie I listed out of the top 10 was Return of the Jedi, and like Vader is such a main character and gets so much screen time in that movie. And I think James Earl Jones just couldn't have done any better. Like he nailed it. And I mean, that's what makes the movie for me is all these line deliveries. Like I don't know why, but line delivery is something that I just like love. When someone hits it right, I go all in. Even if it's a stupid line, if they deliver it well, I'm all in. I'm there. Which is
how many stupid lines have there been in history that we just love because someone just absolutely freaking nailed it? You know what I mean?
And James Earl Jones has many great lines. He doesn't have stupid lines. I'm even thinking right now, Return of the Jedi, there's like a sister. You have a twin sister. It's like everything he says in that movie is like in my head. It's just so iconic. And I had to pull up the video that you were just describing, like the conversation that he had with Luke on before they went to the Emperor. It was just in my head, like that name no longer has any meaning to me. You do not know the power of the dark side, his little power. And I must obey my master. It is too late for me, my son. It's just like there's that movie. It just doesn't get any better than that for me.
There is one thing I have to point out. And so, anytime I get a Father Brian Bradshaw reference, on here, I have to do it. So growing up, Star Wars is a big part of, my life. Like I still have like, I talked about last week, I got like my original Star Wars action figures, that are hopefully still in one piece. And my dad growing up would always quote Vader to me like all the time. And it would just piss like me like the hell off, because I'm like looking, but I would also laugh and he would make me be like laughing at my punishments. Like you're using Vader against me whenever he would like make a deal with me. And then like, as like, I'm like 6, 7 years old, like he'd make a deal like, oh, you do this and I'll let you do this. And then he changes his mind or something. And I'd be like, what the heck? And he's just like, I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further. And then I get like, and then
this deal's getting worse all the time.
if I'm feeling a little bit rebellious, I might talk back one more time. And that's when he looks, he's like, perhaps you think you're being treated unfairly. And that was like, that's like his way of saying like, I'm, I'm joking with you, but like try me one more time. Try me, see what happens, you know. And it's almost like Vader with Lando, like, you know, you humor me, Lando. Like I'm humored by you here a little bit, but like try me one more time and see, you know, what is it? The women's US national team, you know, like F around and find out kind of thing.
Around and find out.
Oh man, what are some, even beyond Star Wars now? Like we're about 40 minutes in. Like, what are like the performances that stand out for you personally? Like for me, I know like where I go to for James Earl Jones, like that I immediately think of outside of Star Wars. But I do want to like let's spend a minute like talking about, you know, some of his other things, because there's a lot to unpack there. Jay, do you have a personal like favorite or a preference?
I think for me, like the one that comes to my mind when I, you know, if we're not talking Star Wars, I think for me it'd be Conan the Barbarian. I mean, like, I think Conan the Barbarian is just like one of my like. It's such a guilty pleasure movie. I mean, like, it's a great movie, you know, and I love Arnold. Like, I think like that is one of Arnold Schwarzenegger's like defining roles.
Right.
You know, but at the same time, it's also very corny and cheesy. You know,
Well,
it's got
just
that
like this one right here, like Coming to America, is super like corny and cheesy, but you know that movie's freaking hilarious.
Yeah, no, and my brother, you know, my oldest brother, he loves Conan the Barbarian as well, you know, because it's like that epic high fantasy, like kind of Skyrim, Lord of the Rings, sort of thing. And the music is really astounding. But you know, James Earl Jones, like in that movie, he's also that he is that villain that you know, like where you can see like young Conan wanting to get revenge on this guy and living his entire life seeking that revenge. And then it's such a like his you know, we were talking about his voice, but even just his like his overall like physical like presence. You know, like in that movie, he doesn't actually say a whole lot, but he conveys so much in just his like blank death death stare, where he just like looks at you, and you know, it's like he's looking right through you. And especially in that opening prologue where Conan and his village is being like burned up and destroyed, and then you know, like everyone's dying, and then James Earl Jones is like the guy who is just stone cold killer all throughout. But I loved like, you know, his performance in that, The Lion King, Field of Dreams. But for me, I think if like second to Star Wars is Conan the Barbarian. Funny enough.
What about you, Luke?
I'm not going to sit here and act like I know his resume super deeply besides Star Wars, but what I can tell you is it was Field of Dreams that we watched in history class, and my history teacher was, you know, has his scene, and he was like, guys, he pauses it like, that's the voice of Darth Vader. Don't you think that's interesting? Anyways, goes and plays it, and I was like, here I am, like 13 years old, and I was like, oh, what? I think I just thought that like up until that point in my childhood, I was like, oh, that's just the person in the suit who's just talking, right? No. So like the Field of Dreams and Sandlot are both of them that I'm like, wow, you know, he's got an on-screen presence. He's not just someone who's just back in the booth giving great performances. He can be absolutely expressive and emotive and great in front of the camera. Like that's hard to see. You don't see that a lot. So he's just a rarity that way. And I kind of wanted to avoid Lion King because I wanted to give you the spotlight to really give some good exposition on your favorite movie of all time.
Hang on, Luke, you watched Field of Dreams in history class?
Yeah, I believe so.
I mean, like, what was the topic?
Let me tell you what's up. I'm going to speak for him, and then I will allow him to tell me if I'm wrong. Luke grew up in Indiana. 100% probably had a coach of some kind as his 7th grade, like U.S. history teacher that probably coach intertwined the history of baseball and the importance of baseball to America and intertwine that with somehow embodies U.S. history. So we're gonna watch this, which is really code for the coach wanted to watch a baseball movie. Tell me how wrong I am.
Yeah, I mean, you're not far off. So the history teacher had a daughter who like played collegiate basketball, like D1
Oh,
basketball.
wow.
Like he was absolutely just trying to shoehorn some sports movie in there, and 7th grade me was all about it, that I didn't have to learn about anything else. So yeah, that
I can
movie
see it,
and
though.
Hoosiers were big in
Travis,
my
I haven't seen Best of the Best. Drop in like a little description in the chat. That would be awesome. I would love that. I was gonna mention Hunt for Red October, like
Yeah,
Patriot Games,
same
Third
Ooh,
Present
spirit.
yeah.
Danger. Love those movies as well, like Admiral James Greer. But I Luke, you know me well. I have to talk about The Lion King just a little bit because it
Or a lot.
is. I feel like it's a cliche of people like my generation, like or like our generation, like our age, to say how The Lion King, was this and that for me. But if you ask like my parents as well, when it comes to movies that I've seen the most, I kid you not, I've probably seen that movie over 100 times. Like I'm like not even joking. Like
We literally talked about The Lion King last week too.
right. And it was like, we talked about Mufasa and everything because
That's right.
Mufasa
I was
comes
like, why
out
did
this
we?
December. And it's like we were joking about Mufasa versus Sonic.
Sonic,
And
yeah.
like that genuinely is like one of my 5 favorite movies. Like when they did the reimagining of The Lion King, they didn't bring back any of the original like voice actors for that, except for James Earl Jones for Mufasa, because how it's like Darth Vader. How could you have like a grown Mufasa's voice without having James Earl Jones like attached to, that character? It's impossible. I think that like I like as a kid, like that was like the first time I was devastated by by a movie was when Mufasa dies in The Lion King. It was the first time I was in like New York City for a Broadway like musical that I could choose like what to do. Like it was not even a question of what I was number one on my list of like I wanted to go see was I want to go see The Lion King. And a large part of the reason I love that movie is because of Mufasa and how when Mufasa, ends up speaking to Simba like from the sky afterwards, like, and remember who you are, like that message of losing yourself, but you can always find yourself again. And remembering like who you are at your core and like the messaging of who Mufasa, like what he was trying to like give on to his son is so good. And like I even think about like the funny like so a good friend of mine is also like a Chiefs fan, and we both love The Lion King. And I was like as a huge Patriots fan, like with Tom Brady, and then like as Tom Brady's retiring, and essentially the torch was passed to Patrick Mahomes, like sending the gif of Mufasa sitting, looking at the sun with Simba next to him is like the sun will set on my time here and rise with you as the new king. Like just like little things like that where the movie just kind of just resonates on a large level. And like that I really mean that. Like that movie meant a lot to me as a kid. It means a lot to me like now. I revisit that, every year as an adult, even just because I really love that. And most of that can be attributed to James Earl Jones' voice as Mufasa, along with like Jeremy Irons as Scar, of course, who I think is iconic villain. But no, I would say definitely that with Mufasa. And then I do have to point out like Field of Dreams monologue from James Earl Jones is one of the most uplifting, and especially like as a sports fan too, like talking about like it's a reminder of like how we like can fail, like we can tear things down, but we can always build them back up again. Like we can always bring back that good again and find it. And if it's about like the pursuit of it and remembering it and carrying the torch and how important that is for society today. And when you think of like that monologue, who else could deliver that at the level that James Earl Jones could? It's like no one. The answer is always no one. If James Earl Jones is delivering that line and you're asking yourself, could someone have done a better job? The answer, it just always seems like it's no.
Absolutely. I don't think there's anyone that could take his place. It's crazy that like they originally had Orson Welles lined up for Darth Vader's voice, and George Lucas was like, I think he's too well known. I don't think it's going to work. So we need to scramble and actually get our second best person in. And lo and behold, it's the greatest performance anyone has ever given in a voice acting booth.
I mean, like it's like when we think about the like Star Wars, and we said it. I don't think we're talking about like a sequel trilogy right now, or like we're talking about the Mandalorian and all these things. Maybe if Darth Vader isn't the iconic villain that he is, like it's very real. Like there's a lot of reasons why Star Wars has blossomed into the multi-generational cultural phenomenon that it continues to be today. And I would absolutely challenge anyone to find someone more important to that than James Earl Jones outside of George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, right? Like there's probably not outside of George. You could argue like, all of these people work together, all of these things, all these characters, these concepts, these ideas, they all, work together to do this. But, there are definitely, there's definitely not anyone that's more important necessarily than what James Earl Jones's voice and performance did for Star Wars. And he's going to be missed. 93 years old is, I was thinking about this, was legacy looks different for everyone. Like not, the three of us are never going to be sitting there at the Tonys, Oscars, or the Emmys and like, proudly displaying our awards, that we have won and delivering a speech like that in front of millions of people. But in legacy, it looks different for everyone. And none of us are going to have this legacy of having probably, touched the lives of hundreds of millions of people over the course of 50 years. But just thinking about like, I think the messaging behind his performances and the legacy that he lived, which was like, continue to be like an authentic version of yourself, like present yourself with every fiber of like what you have, like give everything you have into each performance. And I think the legacy of that like lives on. Like I was saying, if I could have 10% of that fire for life and that enthusiasm for and that passion for whatever I'm doing as a teacher, like that is how I will be able to have like a legacy of James Earl Jones that lasts moving forward. And it's like moments like this when you lose someone of that caliber that it's good to take a moment to step back and reflect on that and think about like what can you do in terms of that.
Absolutely. I can only wish to have been such a light to other people, and to have been such a positive influence to people in my life that there's no way that I'll eclipse what he's done. Like he's been such a force for good for 93 years. Like
crazy.
Yeah, it's impossible to really like grasp how much he's done for people of color, like in acting, like opening the doorway for so many things that we just can't even comprehend. Like he's a trailblazer in so many ways as well. Like not only did he just give this iconic performance, like he paved the way for more people to do what he does. Like he made it possible to have a career in this field of voice acting. Like it's insane, just the glass ceilings he broke, the doors he opened. Like the legacy he leaves behind is so great that we're going to be still finding new ways that he has trailblazed years and years after his death.
He voiced Vader in Rebels, right? Like in the scene,
yes, he did.
With Ahsoka. Like I was just thinking about that. Like
yeah,
I was thinking about animation as well, and I'm pretty sure I was like, and that's they knew what they were doing in that moment. Like this is in terms of animated moments. I think Ashley Eckstein said this at MegaCon in February here in Orlando. She was talking about like what are her favorite Ahsoka moments, and she said that scene with Vader and those lines, it's not her favorite moment in as Ahsoka, but she said that has to be like the one for most fans that feels like that's what it all leads to. Like that might be the most important, like in the most emotional of all of it. And so I have to think like they knew like we can't have Vader and Ahsoka meeting, given everything that we've done through Clone Wars and now Rebels, and not have James Earl Jones like voicing Vader. It wouldn't feel it wouldn't feel right. And I agree that scene is like insane because you have like the real voice of Vader there. Jay, just some final words from you on losing James Earl Jones and his legacy.
We haven't actually even mentioned yet that, I mean, Mr. Jones admitted that he had a stutter.
Oh my gosh,
You
how did
know,
we not even
Yeah.
talk about this yet? I even
but
had it written down in my notes, like number one here.
yeah, no, it's okay. But I made sure to even include that in my tribute article on the website. But he whenever he went on camera and talked about the role, he always made a point to mention that this was a child. This was a man who suffered, or I'm sorry, maybe suffered isn't the right word, but struggled. Like
Mhm,
he had a speech impediments,
mhm,
and he went on to become one of the most iconic voices of all time.
mhm,
So to me, like, that's probably like, the aspect that I'll remember most about Mr. Jones, which is that no matter, like your own personal circumstances, no matter what
mhm,
you may be struggling with, no matter what deficiencies, quote unquote, you may have, I mean, we can always overcome them. And that
mhm,
you never know, like, what kind of doors and opportunities await you if you're willing to step out there and actually give yourself a shot,
mhm,
and to bet on yourself, and to believe in your own abilities,
mhm,
even if other people may not. So,
mhm. And that's when you think about what that must be like for like I've worked with kids that have like stutters in school, but like you hear
yeah,
stories of people that have stutters and thinking about what like that must be like to be someone like as a kid, knowing that, I'm sure that there were other kids that made fun of James Earl Jones because he had like, a stutter as a child.
yeah,
And when you think about how he is having to overcome that to like become the most powerful voice in terms like in film history, you could argue due to like his voice as Darth Vader, his voice as Mufasa, like that is the most, maybe in terms of a singular voice, maybe the most iconic voice in the history of film. And this was someone who was, plagued by like a stutter that he had to overcome at the beginning. It's absolutely like you can't write a better script than that, right? Like you can't. It's phenomenal. Like just add that to the list of incredible accomplishments. Thank you for what you said, Jay. Um, what a good show tonight, guys. I really appreciate you all joining me every Thursday night to talk Star Wars. For those of you who would like to read, our tribute article, out there, Jay had a report on James Earl Jones that we came out this week. I'm sure over the next week or two, we're going to come out with like even some more James Earl Jones stuff. I was going to suggest maybe we do another Star Wars Newsnet kind of roundtable with everyone, kind of giving their thoughts of their favorite memories of James Earl Jones, like, moments in Star Wars. I would also just like to say, make sure you check out Star Wars Newsnet for all of your other Star Wars news. I'm sure we'll have a nice little review of Rebuilding the Galaxy, the Lego series that comes out. Check out our podcast on Apple and Spotify at Star Wars Newsnet. I'll have the audio for tonight up there tomorrow morning. And then every Monday, you can check out a podcast with the Star Wars Newsnet crew as well. Jay and some of the other members of the team had a spoiler review of Star Wars Outlaws this last Monday. And Luke and I are still figuring out what we're going to talk about Monday. I think I have an idea of what we're going to do. But every Saturday, Luke, you can join Luke and I to talk about the Timeline Show. And Luke, why don't you talk one quick moment about what the Star Wars Timeline Show is here on Star Wars Newsnet?
This is a passion project for Tyler and I. We are going through every canon story in Star Wars. And so we started at the beginning, going all the way through the end. And we are right now watching some young Jedi adventures in the High Republic. So it's a really fun time where we kind of just have fun with the stories. Right now it's some children's stories, but we're going to be covering everything. So your favorite movie, we'll be covering it.
Yep. Like and subscribe to the channel. Join us for the Timeline Show. I'm telling you, it is... I think Star Wars gets so focused on like these heated discussions of like right and wrong. This is canon. This is not. We're just like having a good time. We're going through all of the stories that have been told. Some of them are really intense discussions, like for different books and the themes. Right now, we're in Young Jedi Adventures. It's a show for little kids. We're just having fun. I am doing my best reenactments of Young Jedi Adventures to new rock bands. We're testing Luke's the Kublops. We're testing Luke's knowledge of every single alien that shows up in the show, where we saw them, where they came from.
I can't believe I didn't know the Jablogians.
Yes, he didn't know the Jablogians. So we're just having a good time. Make sure you check out the Timeline Show. Join us every Monday. And then Thursdays at 10 o'clock Eastern Time. You can always check us out live here on the Newsnet feed. Jay, tell us real quick about Good Games Dude.
Yeah, so Good Games Dude is my own YouTube channel for video games, and it is a place for beginners and longtime experts of video games to grow in their appreciation of video games. Today, I just dropped a new video talking about Astrobot, giving it my full review. So if you guys have heard, it's actually PlayStation's newest and best-selling 3D platformer. It's great for kids, and it's great for even adults of all ages. There's a lot of stuff there for even the adults and for longtime gamers. So go check that out actually on my YouTube channel. Again, that's Good Games Dude.
You can join us every Thursday night, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Luke and I are, experimenting with some new ways to kind of get you guys even more involved during the week. We're talking about some different stuff to have like even more chats during the week for various things. Excited to talk to you guys about that in the near future. Be looking for our character spotlight article tomorrow afternoon. Also be looking for our very own Miguel, our chief editor. He's going to be putting out his Sunday piece, Galaxy Far, Far Away. Every Sunday, you can check that out. It is the read of the week. If you like Star Wars, it's the best thing you'll read all week. Luke, anything else you'd like to add before we get out of here?
I think Miguel should name it Rebuild the Galaxy Far, Far Away.
That actually would be really funny. Thank you for joining, everyone. Really appreciated all of the touching tributes that you guys put in the chat tonight. I loved being able to celebrate the life of James Earl Jones with everyone. It's honestly an honor to be able to even have our small little platform here to like talk about someone so iconic. So remember that we are all the Republic, everyone. For light and life, we will see you next week.